Groundhog Day. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on Coffee Talk. We get together every day, 7 days a week, to chat about what's going on in the world of weather. Today, for so many different reasons, is the Weathercaster Day, the day of weather. Of course, there's Punxsutawney Phil just filed his report up at Gobbler's Knob. And if you missed it, by the way, here is the outlook, the prognostication from the prognosticator of prognosticators. He did see his shadow. So 6 more weeks of winter from Punxsutawney Phil. That is breaking news coming in this morning. But of course, here in Central Florida, Groundhog Day means something a bit more because it is the anniversary for one of the worst tornado outbreaks in our recent memory. Of course, when you think of tornadoes, you think of the 1998 tornado outbreak, but you also think of the Groundhog Day tornado outbreak in 2007. And we're going to chat with somebody who was, well, impacted, for lack of a better term. So we're going to chat with her. The last time she and I chatted, at least face to face, was, I believe, over some wine out in DeLand, pre-COVID. So it's been a few years, Arnette, since we've been able to do it, but we'll chat with you in just a little bit. I do want to set up the stage in terms of our weather this morning, okay? So let's just see what we've got, and at least this day, 15 years after the Groundhog Day tornadoes, it's beautiful. There's a shot from our tower cam perspective, and we're looking to downtown Orlando, clear skies over top. Last night when I was chatting on, of course I didn't put this up, hold on a second. Hold on, that, and then that. You know, you think you do all the prep work and then you forget one step out of 50, and that's what happens. Last night on West 2 News, I was chatting about just how beautiful it was, how beautiful it was going to be, and how this morning temperatures were going to be just a couple of notches warmer, and that's exactly what we have. 58 degrees, our current temperature in Orlando. We're at 53 degrees in Leesburg. It's 47 in the Villages. 49 degrees in Ocala. So it looks great. First warning Doppler radar looks great as well. And when we look to the forecast for the day ahead, look at that. Temperatures are actually working on their way up. Yeah, little by little. Lunchtime about 72, 73 degrees. We're going to continue up from there. We are headed to 78 degrees for a daytime high temperature. So things are looking absolutely beautiful. Nancy says it's a beautiful morning here in Tampa. Good morning to you. David, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. It's a great day. What can you say? Kenneth, next local rocket launch is 1:13 p.m. tomorrow. Yes, they delayed the rocket, which actually, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm actually a little excited about because I'm off of work tomorrow. So I think I may be able to go out and watch it. Now, booster recovery weather isn't the best, but we are still going with about a 70% chance of good weather for that. So, good stuff. All right, let's talk about temperatures today, and then I want to kind of get to our special coverage of the Groundhog Day tornadoes. High temperature today, about 78 degrees in the city. Beautiful. We'll run to about 80 degrees in Leesburg, 75 in Palm Coast, and 77 degrees in Daytona Beach. So it's a wonderful start. It's a wonderful afternoon. Happy to say that the hits continue to come over the next couple of days. We are not talking about record heat, but those temperatures are climbing from today's 78, a high temperature, to 82 degrees for our Thursday, and 83 degrees on Friday. Okay, it is Groundhog Day, and as I mentioned, it is the anniversary of one of the worst tornado outbreaks in Central Florida history. On February 2nd, 2007, one supercell along many tornadoed several times. There were 3 individual tornado touchdowns, 2 of which were EF3 in nature. 371 homes completely destroyed. Many others heavily damaged. 21 people lost their lives. 21 people lost their lives. When we look at the track of damage, it was at 3:08 a.m. in Sumter County that the tornado touched down with winds of 155 to 160 miles per hour. Now, this is from the National Weather Service, and one interesting thing about this is that it was one of, if not, I believe it was the very first time that the enhanced Fujita scale was utilized. Very, very, very powerful tornadoes. 3:08 a.m. Now, I can tell you I was watching this because as it continued across to Lake County, by the time we hit about 3:37, and I could be off a few minutes in terms of my story, but at 3:37, the tornado touched back down around Paisley, working right by Lake Mac and approaching DeLand. And as it was in this location at 3:37, I was the morning meteorologist at WPBF in West Palm Beach, and I called my father. Now, he lived in like Orange City, DeLand, like right in that area. And I woke him up. And I remember saying, buddy, I'm sorry to wake you up, but there's a really bad storm heading your way. And at this time, we didn't know that there were any tornadoes. I said, there's a really bad storm heading your way. It looks like it's at the very least a tornado possible, but it looks bad. Just go into your safe room. Okay, so he did his thing. 3:37 a.m. I could tell you that EF3 with winds of 160 to 165 miles an hour was a horrible tornado. It ended up being a deadly tornado. I was at Lake Mac that day after the fact reporting and saw firsthand the destruction and the devastation. Then afterward, it dropped back down, working right near New Smyrna Beach in the Ponce Inlet as a weaker EF1 with winds of 100 to 105 miles an hour. This was a tornado outbreak that will be remembered for a very long time. For those of us that were there, especially, before we get to our guest this morning, I want to take you back to 2007. This is my report that I did Sunday morning, so a couple of days after the tornado outbreak, but I hope that it gives you an idea of the damage. Where I was reporting was in DeLand, as that EF3 had weakened to an EF2. Still a very, very powerful storm, but I want you to, I was very young in my career, so I was not very good. And I don't want to make this about me. I just want to show you, and there are other pieces of coverage and clips that I want to share as well. But I do want to show you just the one spot that I was standing. So we'll take a look at this, and then we will continue on. Take a listen.
Colder weather is slated to move into the area tonight. Well, Sally mentioned one of 3 tornadoes touching down was in Volusia County. That was an F2, winds about 150 miles an hour. And Eric Burris from our sister station in West Palm Beach, WPBF, is live there now. Eric, what can you tell about the damage that you've seen so far this morning?
Well, you know, Leslie, I'm standing in Dan Sheehan's bedroom, or at least what used to be his bedroom, and now it's just an incredible scene. Things just destroyed and all wrapped around. The difference that I found between hurricane damage and tornado damage is the fact that everything got lifted up into trees, such as the one just sitting right off the side here of where his trailer stood. Another incredible thing is in his bedroom, in his closet here, all of his clothes still on their hangers as if there was nothing ever that happened. So an absolutely incredible sight here as that F2 roared through on Friday morning.
Eric, as you know, the National Weather Service enhancing this Fujita scale. Now we know that this is more based on damage than it is on wind speeds. We have some pictures here we're showing of what an F0 and F1 all the way up into the F2, F3 categories. Now, I don't know how much you can tell there in the dark, but are you noticing anything specific that would lend the credibility to an F2, saying the trees, how they were destroyed, or the fact that these walls were completely blown off the buildings there?
Well, you know, for example, many of these trailers here are still standing, or a few of those walls still standing. On Friday, I was reporting in Lake Mac, where it was just an absolute field where there was nothing left. So you could tell that this area, while still devastated because of those tornadoes, not as strong of a system that moved through. Lots of the plywood and all the sheet metal pulled up into those trees. But still, we do have the structure standing, such as his closet here, whereas at Lake Mac, very different story.
Absolutely, and it's amazing just how that wind pattern from 150 to 165, Eric, can cause such total devastation. Thanks for your insight. We'll be talking later with you this morning. That is Eric Burris reporting live for us in Volusia County.
All right. So there's a lot of videos and things, and I do want to let you know that my plan is to share with you the 11 p.m. newscast. I went through and grabbed the 11 p.m. newscast from today, 15 years ago. Jim Payne, Wendy Chioji, and the entire WESH 2 coverage team was there. It's an hour-long special, and it is going to be my goal to bring that to you in its entirety a little bit later on this morning. It's coverage that is truly impressive, and for all of the good of what news can be, and of course all of the bad of what that weather event was. And speaking of the bad of what that weather event was, I want to turn to somebody that experienced it firsthand. My friends, let me introduce you to Arnette Sherman. Arnette, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. So Arnette, tell us a little bit about your experience on this day 15 years ago.
Well, it started by my waking up to use the restroom. I went back to bed and realized that I was seeing strobe like lightning out the window, which was unusual. And then I heard that train sound that they talk about. And I woke up my husband and I said, I think you need to get in the bathroom. So I ran in the bathroom and he didn't come in, and I thought, where is he? Well, he went into the closet. So I debated, and then I went into the closet with him, and I was just shutting the closet door when it sucked it right out of my hand and just slammed it. And then all the power went out. It was over really fast. And we live in a house built into a hill, and we are in the lower level for the bedrooms. So we didn't have the immediate damage to the lower part. So we walked upstairs, and I could hear water running. And what had happened, we had the big pine trees had been like cut in half and fell on the roof, and water was just streaming in. Windows had broken out. It was really bad, and my husband said, I'm going to go outside and see what happened. He was gone for quite a while. It was dark out, and he came back and he sat down and he just said, it's really bad out there. We live on 2 acres, wooded, and we have a circle drive. You couldn't get out either drive, was full of trees. And we just had to sit in the dark. This was about 4 a.m. and wait till it got light out. And I couldn't get a hold of my sister who lived 2 blocks away. So I ended up, we walked over there when it got light out. It took us about a half hour because Beresford Road, which is right by us, we're on Old Spring Garden, and it was covered totally with down wires and trees and everything. So we got over there, and her house had some damage, but her detached garage had totally been lifted up and thrown back and collapsed. I mean, and it was a cement block garage. So, and then another neighbor, the house was totally destroyed, and that lot is still empty today. Another house was destroyed, and they started rebuilding, and they ran out of money. And it's still sitting there unfinished after 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And across Lake Beresford, I have a nephew that lives over there and his in-laws were across the street. Their house was totally destroyed. We were very lucky in reality. We did have to move out for 6 months, but we didn't have the damage that a lot of people did. So it's interesting because I grew up in Illinois, and we moved here in '77. We were always down in the basement because of tornado warnings. I mean, we lived near the siren, and my kids were always in the basement. So I didn't expect that to happen in Florida. So I was really surprised.
Sure. Well, and you know, a lot of people don't realize that tornadoes are such commonplace in Florida. We get tornadoes every month of the year, and acre for acre, you know, we get more tornadoes than any other state. They're just typically out in rural areas. They're typically very weak. Unfortunately, the one that was, impacting you was so strong. You talk about waking up, and what grabbed me, and by the way, if anybody has any questions to ask, please go ahead and do so. Arnette's with us every morning on Coffee Talk, so she's a part of us. You had said that you just happened to wake up to use the restroom. Do you look back and consider that something that could have saved your and your husband's life?
Well, that's possible, except that we were in the lower level. So from that standpoint, we were okay. We now have a weather radio, and
Sure.
we do pay attention. So, it affected quite a few people I know, some other realtors whose house was totally destroyed. Um, we were lucky that right in DeLand, immediate DeLand area, I don't believe there were any deaths out in the Lake Mac area, like you were talking about. There were
Right.
there, I think there were at least 6.
If memory serves, there were 10 at Lake Mac, if memory serves.
That could be, yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, and you bring it up. So my goal is today to work on a story for Wesh 2 News at 5:36. And my goal, if we can put it all together, is I want to take the Weather Lab out to Lake Mac and revisit it, because I stood out, and I remember I was standing out there that Friday night, and this is going to lead me to my next question to you, Arnette, but the one thing that struck me when I got to Lake Mac was it smelled like fresh wood, like a labor yard wood, not a labor yard. Oh my God, a lumber yard, because the trees had been so mangled that it had that smell. When you heard the sound, tell me about the sensory, because everybody says it sounded like a freight train, but tell me what happened in your brain and your nose. Where did you go when you heard that freight train and you realized it really was impacting you?
I don't know why, it just came to me that freight train sound. We weren't near the tracks, so I knew it wasn't that. And that strobe lightning was just, it was incredible. I'd never seen anything like that. And that was through the shades. The windows weren't even open. So
Wow.
I just immediately got out of bed and woke up my husband, because I thought that this is it, it's really weird. Some people say the sound sounds like a jet engine, but to me it sounded like a train. So.
And I mean, whether it's a straight line wind or a spinning wind, if you get a lot of it really quickly, certainly that is the case. You had said that you had to wait until daylight to be able to wander those 2 blocks to check in. You said it took a half an hour to go 2 blocks. What was that like? What was that like?
It was kind of weird, because I was concerned about down power lines, and we had to go underneath trees and things to get there. So that was really weird. And what I did before we took our walk, I thought, I'm going to take a few pictures with a flash to see what's out there.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to just get into trouble. So there's one of the pictures. I took that from my front doorway, and the trees had fallen on the van and hit that. That was totaled. Our pontoon boat was next to the garage, and that was destroyed. The roof had big holes in it, so that's my brother who came to help, my brother Bill, who since passed on. He's the reason I live here. I followed him to DeLand. So,
huh. And he still had the smile on his face going through all of that.
Yeah, he was something else. And the trees also broke our well. That's the view from our roof.
Wow.
Looking towards Beresford Road. That would be the corner of Beresford Road and Spring Garden. We call it Old Spring Garden. It's not the truck route. And then my sister was beyond that. So you could see how the trees are just snapped off.
Well, and Arnette, looking at this one right there, the bark was stripped off the tree.
Yeah, I didn't not noticed that before.
So when it comes to determining tornado intensity, one of the things that the National Weather Service does is they look at scenes like this and they evaluate, for example, it takes a certain amount of wind to snap a tree. Okay? It takes a different amount of wind, though, to peel bark right off of it. So to me, like, that immediately stands out to me as higher level damage. Now, I don't have the book in front of me to be able to determine. Do you know, did the National Weather Service survey the area right by you?
They did, I believe, near my sister, Cindy, who's like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
They did come there because the garage, his garage that was totally, destroyed, and another couple houses. And I believe they were told, yeah, that's the neighbor's house that is since gone. And they were told it was somewhere about 160 to 165.
Yeah. So and that was what, looking at the tree, the bark being pulled off the outside of the tree, that would show a bit of a stronger end tornado. This picture, obviously the roof completely failed, but the concrete block on the walls withstood. So it actually, that would tell me that at least is a little lower end wind than perhaps what happened a little closer to you.
Well, actually, then my sister, who's across the street, they're on a couple acres also. The garage, I think I had sent you a picture of their garage. It actually picked it up, and it is cement block there, and that's my brother-in-law Arnie on the left. It picked it up and dropped it. So that's behind him, and you see where the shingles were peeled off.
Peeled right off.
So, yep, it was just so spotty how this happened. So their house had some roof damage on the corner, but not like we didn't have any shingles off our roof.
Right.
And I think it's because the tornado was higher up maybe and
Yeah.
then went down a little. I mean, it's just so spotty. Yeah, that's his garage. I mean, and that's cement block. So it doesn't matter if it's made out of cement block, it's,
Yep.
And my well also was broken off with the tree. And I've got an ornament that I kept. I call it an ornament. It's my sculpture by the front door that from our pole cover that we had over our pontoon boat. It just wrapped it like a pretzel.
Wow.
It just twisted the metal. So, I mean, it's just incredible what it can do. So we were very fortunate compared to other people, that's for sure. But take it seriously when you give a warning. They really need to pay attention.
Arnette, and somebody just commented, Lake Amateur Radio Association says 8 people died in Lady Lake, 13 in Lake Mac Paisley vicinity. So they're the broken down numbers. There's a reason, and it's so interesting because you had mentioned it. There's a reason that when there's a tornado warning that we pop on the air, right? It's not because we like to hear ourselves talk. It's because we know that scenes like that can, and one day again will play out. And on this night, you and your husband, you were in a protected spot given kind of the situation of your home, but so many were not. And when I got to Lake Mac, the one thing when I was talking to survivors is they were saying how the weather radio woke them up. And I will never forget one woman saying that the weather radio woke her up. She was elderly, and it took her a few minutes to get to her bathtub. I believe she lived in a mobile home, and by the time she got into her bathtub, her home was being ripped apart around her. And just those few minutes, you're overwhelmed because of the situation, the gravity of the situation, but she's sharing this story, and I can't keep from crying because this woman is talking about how this simple $20 weather radio truly saved her life. And as she's recounting it, you can see the terror in her face, the shock to her system, and just kind of knowing I was one of those lucky ones. And I've got to imagine that for you and for your family, you know, you see those pictures, you had to, at least in that moment, say, I was one of those lucky ones.
Absolutely. We were very, very lucky. And all the people that I know who had damage to their homes and that, they themselves were okay. So that was lucky. Especially that's Beersford Road between Spring Garden and Spring Garden.
Wow.
15A and Spring Garden. And you can see what it did to those trees. They're shredded, you know, it looked like a war zone, really.
Yeah.
And the power company that's come to help. It was pretty amazing what can happen. Like one side of our house, we had broken windows, and a small tree came down
Right.
and broke my desk in half. And my friend came over like the next day. I was still like in shock. She said, "You're just wandering around like don't know what to do." I saw her sweeping the wall in my bathroom, and my friend Susan, and she said, "Well, there's glass embedded in there, and that we had a window in the bathroom that blew out, and it embedded the glass in the wall."
Yeah.
And she was sweeping it off, so I had no idea. So it was really spotty, even in our own house, what happened.
Yeah.
You know,
It's incredible. Let's take a minute. I want to head over to Gail Pascal Brown. This is footage from, again, 15 years ago. Gail was at Lake Mac. Let's listen to what she had to say.
In Lake Mac. Gail?
That's right. I'm here in Lake Mac on Lake Mac Road, and everywhere you look, it's going to be an incredible cleanup here, too, because everywhere you look, there is debris, whether it's the trees that are torn down or the homes. There's single-family homes out here, modular homes, as well as trailers. And, you know, there was one family, basically, that had the entire top roof of their two-story house torn off. It is an amazing story of how that tornado struck, and they were just happy, yes, thankful to have lived to tell about it.
I was just hearing the whole house crushing down around me, and I heard all of those noises, and I could see all of everything just flying around.
When Linda got out, she couldn't find her husband, son, or daughter. She thought they were gone until she found her daughter hanging from a piece of wood on the second floor. Her son was in sand with an injury to his head, and her husband appeared out of some nearby trees.
I feel very lucky that we're all alive. Okay? I feel also lucky that our injuries are minor. Okay? These are just things. We can replace these things.
Now, here's a look at Tom Considine's house before the storm. And looking at this video after the storm, you can see they have a lot of rebuilding to do. Just an incredible story. Tom tells us that at 3 a.m. he heard the boom, boom, the proverbial sound of the freight train, and then the flash. So he rushed downstairs to get the kids, and before you know it, he was blown out and into some trees. Incredible stories of survival. Unfortunately, though, here in the Lake Mac area, 13 people did not make it. And, of course, we are all concerned about their families as they're trying to rebuild not only their material things, but emotionally it's tough on them. Sally?
Well, and Gail, these stories are amazing, what these people had to go through.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about it is when you come out and you look at this, it does take a while. Maybe it does take the 48 hours or the 24 hours after the storm. And then you just really can't even swallow the whole thing because there's so much devastation everywhere you look. And so when you hear these stories that we're hearing this morning, the stories of survival, the stories of finding a Bible, those kind of things, that makes you count your blessings big time.
It does indeed. On this Sunday, I think a lot of people counting those blessings. Gail Pascal Brown, thanks so much for that.
Wow. So there you go. Any final words kind of reflecting on this day 15 years ago?
Well, the other thing that I was aware of, that strangers were very helpful. We could not believe people came by. Some big crews with their trucks and that, they came and helped cut up some of the trees and remove them. I don't even know who they were.
Yeah.
There was a church down the street. They came one day and they said, "We're here to help clean up the yard." They came by. I mean, and the other thing, the difference with a hurricane and a tornado, with a tornado it's so spotty, so your neighbors are still able to help you. It's just so sporadic. My next door neighbor had no damage at all. The other one had a lot of damage. I
Wow.
mean, but at least you were able to get help. I had friends that brought me things over, and then we had to move out of our house for 6 months while they
Right.
rebuilt it, the top part basically. So that's the thing. The kindness of people was pretty amazing. I really.
And
appreciate
what did
that.
Mr. Rogers say, right? In those times of darkness, always look for the helpers, right?
Yeah, yep. It was really, really, really nice to see. And my friends, of course, they
Sure.
came over and helped. And we stayed at my friend's house for a while. And we even had company planned to stay with us. And she said, oh, that's okay. They can stay at our house because we're going on vacation. And, and you can just stay there.
Wow.
So that was really nice. We did that till we found a rental.
Wow.
So your life really changes during that time. I mean, it really does affect you a lot. It kind of consumes it afterwards.
I could only imagine, and in a traumatic moment like that, it has to also put some things into perspective, I think. And I've got to believe you carry that perspective with you even today, 15 years later.
Right. It's hard to believe it's 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, it even affected our cat. Well, our cat was in the garage and was okay during the storm. But then when we got the rental, the cat was, didn't come with us. And we thought, well, he'll be fine. And we went and fed him and saw him every day.
Right.
Well, then one day he got injured. He had a really bad cut. And the vet said it was probably a raccoon or something that got in a fight with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to come into the rental for a couple months while he healed. And then he became an indoor cat, which is better anyway.
Yeah.
So, and he became very loving, and we had to put him down a while ago, but we got him during Hurricane Charlie.
That's another anniversary.
Yeah, he was hiding in our garage. We opened our garage door after Hurricane Charlie, and he came out and he was like half grown, and I said, well, we're not keeping him. He belongs to somebody. Well, he never left.
Yeah. Well, if you take good care of him, you take good care of him.
Yeah.
Arnette, thank you so much for joining us today, my dear.
Thank you. And we're very happy to hear that your dad is doing better, because he's a good friend, and I know it's going to be a long haul, but we're rooting for him. So give him our love, please.
I will. And I mentioned you guys, and I think that he's looking forward to having some wine at some point.
At some point, right? Yeah. Well, we miss him.
It brings a smile to his face. Arnette, thank you very much, my dear. Wow. It's wild to think that it has been 15 years since that. And on this day, we'll take a look at the 7-day forecast. I am beyond happy to say that is absolutely a 180. We are in no way, shape, or form tracking the threat for severe weather today. We are not tracking the threat of severe weather for tomorrow. Our extended forecast is nice and quiet. We are into the upper 70s today and the lower 80s for tomorrow and Friday. Okay, so coming up a little bit later on today, my plan is to air in its entirety the 1-hour WESH 2 News at 11, which took place on today, 15 years ago. You're going to see a lot of faces that you remember, and what you're going to see is Central Floridians covering Central Florida in one of the darker moments. And what I want you to look for, I watched it last night. I was up way past my bedtime just for work, and then in addition to that, I just watched it because it was so captivating. I want you to watch how, as Arnette mentioned, the people were there helping each other. Remember that. In all of those times of darkness, there's always those helpers. One story from me, if you may, and if I may, and then we can end coffee talk. I will never forget, and this is one of the reasons that I got involved with this organization. I was in Lake Mac. The governor was there. Senators were there. All the there was so much relief effort. As the sun set, I will never forget the Red Cross pulling up one of their ERVs. They call them ERVs. It's an emergency response vehicle. And they just came up, volunteers and said, even to media. Now, I didn't live there, but they were asking every person there, are you okay? Do you need a meal? Do you need something to drink? Because everybody that finds themselves in situations like that, the helpers, the media covering, certainly the residents, check in to make sure they're okay. And the Red Cross, I had brought water with me. I was fine. But I remember them going around in the rubble in this Irv, asking, is anybody there? Do you need food? Do you need water? Is there anything that we can do? Always, always, always in those darkest moments, look for those that help because they are always there. All right. All right. So my goal is just after 9 o'clock to stream it. We will throw that feed up there. Wesh 2 News at 11 is my goal from that night. Okay? All right. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Remember those we lost 15 years ago today from that deadly tornado outbreak, and make sure that if there should be a severe threat anytime, that you have 2 ways to be prepared. A NOAA weather radio, something like that. Wesh 2 mobile app. NOAA, I believe, has a mobile app that does weather alerts. The Red Cross has a weather app that does weather alerts. 2 ways to be prepared, because I can recall standing out there talking to those survivors. The people that I talked to all said the exact same thing. The weather alert or weather alarms woke them up. All right? All right, guys and gals. I will chat with you guys and gals later. Thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of